Hello again, I'm Dave Apsley. I'm a forester and a natural resources specialist with Ohio State University Extension. Today I'm at Cantor's Cave 4-H camp here in Jackson County, Ohio, and I'd like to introduce you to one of our birch species. This is yellow birch, and yellow birch is commonly associated with areas much to our north. It's actually called Betula alleghaniensis, so it's more in the Alleghenies and more common in Pennsylvania and up in the Northeast and well up into Canada. But it also follows the Appalachian Mountains well down into the southern Appalachians at higher elevations. Here in Ohio, we're probably more on the western edge of the range of this species, and you're going to typically find it on the rugged edge of the Allegheny Plateau. So places like the Hocking Hills or here at Cantor's Cave, Lake Catherine State Nature Preserve. It's not a real common species, and again, it's affiliated with sandstone cliff lines like this in hemlock forest. So to identify yellow birch, you're going to first notice that the leaves are alternate. So the leaves do alternate sides of the twigs. The leaves are simple, which they have a single leaf blade. They have a toothed margin or a serrated margin, but that margin or edge is doubly serrate. So you're going to have very large teeth, and then on each of those teeth, you're going to have several finer teeth along the edge. They tend to be kind of oblong with a nice pointed tip. The base can be either kind of blunt or more rounded. Its cousin, the sweet or black birch, has more of a heart-shaped base, where these tend to be a little bit more rounded. And then another thing that's really unique with this and sweet birch, a lot of times you're going to find these leaves in pairs. So these twin little leaves are going to be found right at the bud. So really what's going on there, it's not that they're opposite, is that these buds are on little spur shoots or very, very short little branches. And because the branches are so short, they tend to have two leaves, and the leaves are so close, or they originate at the same point on the twig almost, but they're slightly apart. So they appear to be opposite, but they're actually in pairs, and these buds are going to alternate sides of the twig, which is another clue that it's alternate. The buds on this one have lots of scales. Yellow birch typically has a bud that's a little more oppressed, or it lays flat on the twig, where its cousin, the sweet birch, has more of one that sticks out or is divergent. These actually are more like yellow or sweet birch looking buds, but they're really neat. And again, oftentimes a little bit further back on the twig, you're going to find leaves that are paired. Leaves tend to be a little bit hairy. If you look at the petiole or the little stalk, it's a little hairy. And even the new growth of the twig tends to have a hairy nature to it. So that's going to separate it out from sweet birch. One thing it does have in common with sweet birch is if you take the twig and scratch it with your thumbnail to expose a little bit of that twig and take a whiff, you're going to pick up a distinct wintergreen odor. Not quite as strong as sweet birch would be, but definitely a distinct wintergreen, just like the wintergreen gum that Wrigley's makes. It's got that distinct wintergreen odor. They used to extract this and make flavorings out of it for things like chewing gum. So that's really unique. They say that the Native Americans actually chewed on the twigs of yellow birch and sweet birch to get that flavor and to clean their teeth. So again, this is yellow birch foliage, really unique plant. It does produce fruits that look like little cones. They're little wing seeds in these clusters, and they're upright on the twig. I can't get to the crown to show you those right now. But the other thing that is really neat on this tree is the bark. The bark, if you go way up in the tree, and I can't get you any really good shots of it, but on a young tree and high up in the crown, it's almost metallic. It's almost bronze in color. So therefore it gets its name, yellow birch. Down here, it's not quite as yellowish. If the sun's just right, you can maybe pick up a little bit of a yellow tint to it. But the other thing it's neat, the bark does kind of peel, similar to paper birch, but it'll curl, and you'll get these curly little thin layers of bark right here on the surface. So that's a great ID characteristic. This property has some beautiful yellow birch. There's about a dozen or so that I've found around here. The biggest ones are probably close to 2 feet in diameter. And then finally, a really unique characteristic, and it makes this tree survive and do so well here in the Hocking Hills or down here in Jackson County in the Rock Run area, is that it likes to grow on rock surfaces. In the southern Appalachians, you'll commonly find it growing on logs or on rocks, and the seeds will actually land on moss on a rock, and the roots will find their way around that log. And once that log or that stump that it lands on decays, you'll actually have trees that look like they're on stilts. I've seen a whole row of birch on a log that decayed, and you can actually crawl under all of them. So they're like up on stilts. And I found a shot that we'll pull into the video later that's not as dramatic as you might find in the southern Appalachians. I think it's probably more common to see that down there because there's quite a bit more moisture, and those roots have a better chance of making it around that log and down into the soil where it can begin to grow and last until that tree decays and creates those stilt roots. So again, yellow birch, not common at all here in Ohio, especially this far south. You will pick it up quite a bit more as you get up into the northeastern part of the state. So again, thank you for your time. Please be sure to take at least part of your day to enjoy it in the woods.